Hello and welcome to Stripping the Dipping. You're joined by your usual co-host, Denzel Clarkson, aka Amg Denz. And words cannot encapsulate just how thankful, honored I am to be able to speak with our very special guest today. Because, it's not every day you get the opportunity to chop it up with a Formula 3 champion, a G3 world champion, a legend of the Mercedes driver stable, and for me personally, in my heart, one of my heroes. So it is the special song, Raffaele Marcielo. Raffaele Marcielo, he is the best. Oh, Raffaele Marcielo, he's the best you ever seen. He drives an AMG. He is the king of the GT. Lello, it's so awesome to have you here with us today on this episode. How are you feeling after such a dominant weekend?
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm happy. The season started quite well for me, except in Daytona. But yeah, it's going quite well in the GT World Challenge Championship, also ADAC. So it's quite early in the season, but for sure I cannot complain.
We're so happy to touched on many motorsport disciplines that you compete in as well. The ADAC with the 24 hours of the Nürburgring and that series, and obviously the GT World. You're such a multifaceted driver, and I think we really want to basically show our audience today just like the different motorsports available out there because cover F1 content, but I've been saying to Georgina, we must run at some stage. So, without further ado, Raffaele, let's start with the beginning. How did your journey into motorsports begin? Who were your favorite drivers growing up, and did you take to get into F3?
Yeah, I started when I was really young. I was around 3.5, 4 when I started. I'm the first driver in the family, but my dad was always a fan of motorsport, so he always followed F1 and everything. So immediately I was able to drive, let's say. He put me in a little go-kart and I started to drive, but I don't remember nothing because I was so young. So my first memory of karting is when I'm like 7, 8, when you start to win and then you start to realize that is what you want to do. And yeah, let's say my career there was pretty linear. I did karting until I was 14, and I was doing all the European and World Championship in karting. It was always me, Sainz, Kivat, and De Vries were the fourth driver. We were always winning races between us. Then I was lucky enough to enter the program of the Ferrari Driver Academy in 2010, and thanks to them, I start my Formula career, let's say, with my first year in Formula Abarth. Then straight I went to Formula 3 Italia, and then I did Formula 3, yeah, Euro Series the first year, and then became FIA in the second year when I won the championship. And
I,
it's difficult to say a favorite driver, but yeah, I always liked quite a lot Kubica. Like Robert for me was one of the best for sure. Like also Fernando Alonso for me is really good.
yeah, I really agree with you. Robert Kubica had like so much potential, and I remember growing up back in that day and time as well when he was at BMW Sauber, and everyone was
Yeah.
saying this guy is going to be like the next big thing. And obviously as well, you mentioned driving pretty much in the same time, same era as Sainz and Kvyat, which were part of the Red Bull Driver Academy. Also, you had Nick De Vries, which is part of the Mercedes program. But for you, Raffaele, you were part of the Ferrari F1 Junior Academy, which is crazy. Also, you worked quite extensively with the Sauber F1 team as a reserve and test driver. I was looking at your awesome pictures from that Malaysia practice session back in 2015.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Could you give us some insight of just what it was like to be part of that academy at that period of time?
Yeah, it was nice when I was like, it was. the real academy in the beginning. Now Ferrari Driver Academy is not like the past. Now, like if you pay, you can be part of it. In the past, was always like if you deserve, then like we help you. I mean, it was great. I was doing a lot of simulator for Ferrari, like some mental coaching, physical. I mean, I was living in Maranello, so I mean, I was part of the team. Then yeah, when I became tour driver Sauber, I mean, it was great, but was nothing special because Sauber is a really small team. So you know when you start to do a meeting or like it's always the same at one point. So I mean, it's nice the first time, but then everything is the same. They never bring update in the car, so there is not so much to learn. It was better when I was like following all the Ferrari program and Ferrari meeting. That was more interesting because every meeting was different. They were like bringing update to the car, so that was much better. Yeah.
Okay. Careful to learn that as well, and just how the different scale of teams maybe have different programs and philosophies, and the kind of work life maybe at Ferrari, which is a championship team, from Sauber, which with all due respect to them, they're more midfield, more entry level. I could definitely see like the comparison between the two. And just the last bit on your early kind of part of your career, Raffaele. You also raced in GP2 or F2 as it's known now for 3 years.
Yeah.
What were some of the hardest challenges you faced in those years? Because it's a very tough and competitive series, and yeah, you see a lot of drivers. Even if they don't do Formula One, they move on from the category, but it's just very hard. So, how did you overcome some of the challenges you faced in those years?
But the problem of the young or the young category is like you need a good team. So when I was winning, for example, Formula 3, I was winning because I was with Prema, and it's the best team. It's the best team in junior category, more or less. So yeah, thanks to them, I was winning all the championship. Then when I was in Formula 2, the problem I was not with top team, so it was always quite difficult. But I mean, I was trying like my best. Also, if I didn't have team like Prema or Art Grand Prix, but I mean, it was still fun to do the season. And yeah, in my last season in GP2, I finished third behind the two Prema, so it was quite okay.
That's really impressive because again, I think people underestimate like how even though I guess the cars are this it's a spec series, so the engines are the same, chassis are the same. Still, there is a noticeable difference between the actual teams because you've got like the ones you've mentioned, Prima, AT, Carlin as well as a big one, and then the others as well. And just there's no kind of irony, I guess, that you always see the guys that win, like in Prima. So you've got like the likes of Leclerc, Mick Schumacher. You had ART, which was like Lewis Hamilton and Russell, and that as well. So it's interesting you mentioned that. And then to get into the next segment, Raffaele, I wanted to talk about driving the GT cars. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do a brief introduction to listeners because a lot of them are completely new to like GT3s. So for all the new fans, you've got GT3, and it's basically held by GT World Challenge Series. It's the most prestigious one of them all. And with GT racing, it's highly competitive motorsport, which huge manufacturers like Mercedes, Audi, Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, BMW, you name it. They all compete with works teams, but also customer teams, basically stewarded by like a governing body called the SRO, and each team has two, sometimes even three drivers who race every weekend around the fastest circuits in the world. So there's a sprint series, and that has two qualifyings and then two 60-minute sprint races. And what makes it so fun and so exciting to watch, and I really implore to go and check it out, is there's a mandatory pit stop for fuel and for tires, and there's also a driver swap where basically the teammates swap seats. So it's extremely thrilling to watch, and probably thing that makes it so close and unpredictable at times is that each car, the Mercedes, the Audis, they have their own strengths and weaknesses with a custom BOP, which balance of performance. So they will put ballast on maybe one car or one track, or maybe they'll put certain on another car. And the aim of this is to make the racing as close as possible in a very organic manner. So we've also got under the same brand of the GT World, the Endurance Series. And again, I implore people to go and check it out because you get specialized races as well, like the 24 hours of Spa, which again got Rouge, Pouan, all of these corners, and it's such a technical circuit. And then you got these legends, these like heroes like mines, Raffaele, that race around those circuits for 24 hours, and it's so exhilarating to watch, and it's real test drivers and teams' talent, their concentration, and the strategy. That's been my little introduction into the GT3 world, and this that amazing. But Lello, I wanted to ask you some questions just in relation to that too. So my first one really, and I know it's like a really obvious question, but how would you compare your driving approach, like to open wheel, like single seater F2, to obviously like a more conventional GT3 car in the GT World Series?
More or less, I didn't change my approach so much. I mean, a 10 is a car with four wheel, like a Formula. I mean, you have more downforce for sure. The car is heavier. At a one point, you push like always. So you need to adapt a bit with ABS and traction control. But for me, it was not like a big change. I mean, you have a roof in your head that in Formula didn't have, but more or less, more or less is not so different. I mean, you need to adapt braking for me especially because with the weight, the braking are a bit longer. But I mean, I'm pushing like I was pushing in Formula, so for me it was not like a big jump, let's say. Yes.
Okay, well, it's nice to know that a lot of the skills and the way that you're driving, it was transferable to the kind of like single seater GT3 cars as well. And the next question, Raffaele, is what was the story behind you getting like the work drive at the main Mercedes AMG team? Because with Mercedes, you've obviously got ACA ASP team, and they're like the works team. Obviously you have others like Sky Tempesta that have AMG, but your team is like the big dog team. So I'm gonna big you guys Akidis AMG team. How did you get the drive there? Because I mean, at one stage you were at the Ferrari program, and now you're like a full, like respected, like senior member of the Mercedes like GT team.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Ferrari, and at one point I realized I didn't have any chance to go to Formula One for many reasons. So, I mean, at one point I was tired to to pay like to racing. So like I didn't have many other option, or like was just stop racing or try to find a place where I was able to be a professional driver and be paid, let's say. And I knew Mercedes people from my Formula 3 time because I had a Mercedes engine, and we start to speak. And I mean, at that time, Akka was not like a big team, let's say, and also GT3 was not so big back in the days, was not like so popular as now, let's say. Maybe some driver even didn't like GT because I don't know, they didn't like the car or whatever. But I believed in the GT program. So I said like yes, why not? So we did a contract and then I started to be a GT driver with Akka. I call this now, and yeah, with the team since 17 now. So we grow. I mean, together. I have the same engineer since 17 mechanics, so we know each other really well. They know what I want. So at one point, like this is much better. I also bring my engineer to ADAC. Also, if he's another team, he's always the same engineer, so more or less it's the same car. so you always keep the same car, the same people around you. So then for sure, like this is much better.
Interesting. And like you mentioned, the consistency of having the same mechanics and engineers around you in both of those different like series, as you mentioned, it helps. And I like as well that you mentioned that you were with Akko, which maybe wasn't a big team when it first began its entry into GT racing, but now, Raffaele, you guys are like the legends. You guys are those guys. Like I just see you guys, and I'm just like, yes, that's my team, and you guys become, I almost think, as big as the sport in a sense. It's amazing to see how organically that partnership has grown over the years. And obviously, you've got your mechanics, which you've had from your earlier career, which you still now. And it's such a key thing that I think people underlook. So, a really great response there, too. Now, the next thing I wanted to ask was how do you train and prepare yourself for the longer endurance races? So you refer to ADAC there, and that's where you would do the 24 hours of Nürburgring, but then also we've got the 24 hours of Spa coming fairly soon. How do you physically and mentally prepare yourself for those long stints and just the strategy and fatigue that comes with those longer races?
I didn't have so much time to train because I'm always racing, let's say. So
Mhm.
my training is racing, spending time on track. When I have some free time, I like to bike, to cycling. So
Mhm.
let's say my lucky to be able to race every weekend almost. So this is my training. Yeah.
Okay, well, again, it's a very active way to do it, and I guess it's the most natural way to prepare as well. If you're driving a car with a I guess there's different things with like the tire pressures and the Pirelli compound and just the experience and seat time you get as well. You're always going to feel quite sharp. So yeah, I could see that being a thing. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about, Raffaele, again, like you're my favorite driver, but then also you drive one of my favorite cars as well, being Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo. So this is the evolutionized version of the original car. It's a V8 naturally aspirated beast. It's front engine with like a huge emphasis on aero with the user on the rear and then the rear wing as well. What is your favorite thing about that car, and what are the characteristics of that car that suit your driving style? Would you say?
More or less is a car that is strong like in every condition. It's not like the fastest car, but it's always good. I mean, it adapts quite quickly to every condition. So like maybe it's not mega for single event because can happen that maybe they're not the strongest there. But overall, during like a season, like a championship, is really good because more or less you always there and you can always score points. So this is like quite strong. A weak point, I think, is top speed. I mean, we always lack in top speed because our car is really strong in corners and fast speed. So they have to penalize us somewhere, and normally we're penalizing top speed.
Okay, and just to clarify on that as well, Raffaele, when you say they are punishing you, do you mean like the SRO with like the BOP?
Yeah, yeah, BOP, yeah, for sure.
With the
Yeah,
BOP? See, that
yeah,
makes sense because, like I mentioned earlier to the listeners as well, with the BOP, it's like each car has its own kind of tweaks. So, like, and it's not even uncommon. I think even with the GTE in Le Mans class, they do that too. Because if you were, I guess, to let the manufacturers do whatever they want, you'd always get the losers or the losing team saying this is not fair. We want it to be more balanced and so forth. So, for the sake of the racing, they things like this. Like you mentioned, like the Mercedes is a really strong package overall, but maybe it's the top speed where it lacks maybe in comparison to the other cars. So
yeah,
interesting to note. And also, you share a car 89 with your teammate Timur
yeah.
Boguslavski. Huge shout out to Timur as well, great guy. How do you both go about setting up the car with the mechanics and engineers during practice? Because ultimately, you guys are people, and you're very tall. say, and he's like maybe more conventionally, a bit more stocky. Do you guys have like a dream? Like, how do you guys go about making the setup? And do you guys have different driving styles, or the driving styles similar?
No, I mean, at the end, it's the engineer who decides the setup.
Hmm.
So, one point, the car will never be perfect. So we need to adapt. Maybe some weekend the car is more understeer and maybe it's better for a few drivers.
Hmm.
And maybe one weekend is oversteer and it's better for other driver. But a good driver need to adapt in every condition. So I mean, a fast car is a fast car. So if a fast car has to be understeer, then we need to adapt in understeer. If a fast car is oversteer, we need to adapt in oversteer.
Absolutely. And also, just like whilst I'm on this kind of topic as well, Raffaele, what kind of balance do you more? I know you're gonna say it depends on the track, but with your driving style, I noticed that your inputs are very sharp and like you go for it. So, do you prefer more understeer, or do you like to live maybe more dangerously with the back end of the car sliding, maybe more oversteer?
No, the car should be quite stable on the rear on entry because it's
Mhm.
always really good to bring speed in the corner. And then, yeah, in around mid corner, a good rotation so you can have a good entry and good exit. So, yeah. But let's say a stable car is always better than oversteering also for 1 hour race with degradation and stuff. Like, if you have oversteer, you always have, like, maybe it's good in quali, but then for race, it's not so good.
That's true, and I guess also you take that into account as well because you, like you mentioned, you could have a really good car in qualifying that's lap pace, but then when it comes to like a long 60-minute race, which could feel quite long too, and then you have the tire degradation at players, it's not good maybe to jeopardize all on this one thing. So I totally agree with your analysis there too. And kind of on the topic of that, Raffaele, you had a dominant performance this weekend at Magny-Cours. Firstly of all, I want to say well done. You and Timor
Thank you.
smashed it. You gave those Audi boys hell, and I love to see it. So, how did the balance of the car feel throughout the weekend, going from like a completely green track to optimum conditions? How hard push in your stint on the tires for the start of race two, where you started the race?
But more or less, the track stayed consistent throughout the weekend. Our balance was, yeah, pretty much consistent. Uh, Slightly understeer in high speed. So I think in track like Magny-Cours, where you have also quite high grip and not so much degradation, is okay because anyway the balance doesn't change so much through your stint. And luckily, because my car was really strong, I have to say, I didn't need to push so hard. Also on qualifying, I mean, I knew I had a good chance to do pole like in Brenzage. So it was just a matter to put a good lap together without doing any track limit and or mistake. So I took it pretty easy, I want to say, and yeah, it was enough for pole and winning the race because the car was much faster than the rest. Yeah.
Ah, well, I mean, and I was really mesmerized as well, Raffaele. Like, I do a bit of sim racing, which I'm gonna get onto shortly, and I was like, wow, like I need to take this guy's lines and try and apply them in a Seto Corsa, and then I'll be winning more races. So, absolutely, you're an inspiration to us all. And actually, another funny observation I made, Raffaele, I wanted to ask you this is, I noticed with the AMG Evo, the engine map is always in map three, and
Yeah.
it always seems that the ABS numbers are like high, like maybe the ABS at 7 and maybe the traction control at 10. And me, discussion, like with the numbers, Raffaele, like for the traction control and ABS, is it the higher the number, the more electronic support you're getting from those systems? Or is it the opposite? Is it the higher the number, less traction control and ABS?
High is the number and less is the intervention. I know in Assetto Corsa it's the opposite, but it's wrong.
Mhm.
Normally, like higher you go, less intervention you have. And about the map, I mean, in GT World Challenge, we have only, even if it's map 3, the quickest, is only one map. Even if I
Mhm.
put map one, that doesn't change anything. It's only for IMSA that if you go lower in maps, you have less fuel consumption and you can play a bit on strategy and stuff. But in GT World Challenge, we have only one map.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that as well, because that's a nugget of information I really didn't know before. And yeah, it's interesting because when like me and my friends are sim racing, we're like, what is the point of having this engine map like here when it like it's there, but like what's the point? Because we never really use races either.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for clarifying that for us. And I guess on the topic of the sim racing thing, then Raffaele, like I know that well, I've actually like stalked your Insta a bit today, like how do you in a Assetto Corsa competizione compared to real life? Like, would you say in terms of the physics and the characteristics of the car, it's a good simulation, or do you think it's not really like good?
No, I have to say I quite like Assetto Corsa Competizione. Is okay. It's better than a racing GT3. I don't like the GT3 cars in a racing. The only problem I always don't like in Assetto Corsa is curbs. The car is really hard on curbs, and if you touch the curb, you spin more or less, and
Mhm.
contacts between the cars. But the rest, I have to say, I enjoy when I have to play to Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Okay, that's interesting. And Raffaele, I might have to DM you, or if you're free one of these days, I would love to like bring you, like to help us win some online races one day. It'd be amazing. But I'll move on to the next question. Raffaele, what is the secret to your speed and your success? And what advice would you give to younger drivers coming through, like, their car careers at the moment?
But it's difficult to like give advice. I started pretty much when I was young,
Mhm.
so I mean just to be passionate, not to drive because you want to be someone or because you want to make money or whatever. I mean, you need to drive. You like driving, and because you like motorsport, you need to be passionate, know the story, the history. So you have to do it because you like, not because you only want to do it for money. Yeah. So I see many drivers that they do it for this reason, or maybe they're not really passionate. So
Mhm.
I mean, you need to know like the motorsport, and I think this is a great start. And then for sure you need talent because you can be passionate as much as you want, but if you're 1 second off, then it doesn't make sense. So it's like a combination of stuff. Yeah.
Of the two. Sure, absolutely. And I think that's fair to say as well. Last two questions just in relation to the G racing as well, Raffaele, before we get into some fan questions. Do you have any superstitions or like rituals you do before a race or even before a driver swap? Because man, like I like your style as well. Like you always have like a new hairstyle color, or I know that you obviously have the partnership with WT, so you've got the very cool helmet and the pink Speed Cat Pro Puma boots too. But yeah, do you have any superstitions or anything that you do before a race or before a driver swap?
No, I don't believe in luck or a lucky moment, let's say.
Mhm.
So I always do like what I feel. Let's say so like when I do driver change, I just do driver change. So like yeah, I'm not superstitious as I do nothing special.
Okay, interesting to know. The last kind of question on just like the GT world experience, Raffaele, from your perspective, what organizers of the GT World Series and the journalists as well, what do you think they could do to give the series more exposure and to attract even more new fans to watch and support it?
Nah, I think they're doing good enough. I mean, it's not Formula One, so it's really difficult to attract people. I think they are doing well. We have always the paddock with with a lot of people on now even with Valentino even more. So
Mhm.
I think they are doing well. I mean, it's difficult to attract people, but I mean, GT World Challenge is nice because when you buy a ticket, you can go in the paddock, you can meet the drivers. I think they are doing pretty well.
That's super cool. And yeah, maybe a question will approach you on kind of like off air, but it'd be super cool, Rafael. I've never actually been to a race before in my entire life. I've always just been like a TV watcher, but super passionate. Like, you know, maybe would there be the opportunity if like we just as a podcast could follow the Akidis SP team at some stage, maybe like a stage to follow you, to support you and Timor and Marco and Jules Gunon maybe one time to see kind of like what it's like behind the scenes.
It's it's a team decision, like not mine. So I don't
Sure.
know.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, maybe we could, maybe you could work your kind of stardom with them, and they might be able to do something. But that's super cool, and I think it's nice that you've mentioned just for even the normal fans, it's so accessible for them, and they can come and check out the cars, like from the paddock, and meet the drivers and stuff. And I've seen you with lots of selfies with the fans too, and it's really nice, because there are some drivers like they don't like doing social media, they don't like the fans that's there to race. And yeah, from my opinion, it's always nicer when the driver you follow and you support, they show that same love and passion back to the fans as well. So super happy to support you. So
Yeah,
Rafi,
thank you.
let's get into some of the fan questions.
Yeah,
The first controversial one, we know that you have Italian connection, so
yeah.
pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No,
Okay.
no,
Straight away with the no. Okay.
no.
Uh,
Yeah.
if you could race in any other series of your choice, Raffaele, what would it be?
Uh, you hear me?
Sorry,
Yeah.
no, we
Okay.
lost
Yeah.
connection to you
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
Raffaele.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. If I can race any other series, I would like to do Paris Dakar.
Okay, so like
Yeah.
the rally driving, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
Dakar. Oh, so, man, why that one? That's so different to what you do.
But I am a fan of motorsport, so I mean, I would like to do everything. Also, like super track stadium. I did Rally of Monza a few years ago. So I mean, Paris Dakar is just an iconic race and like just a like adventure to do it. Yeah.
Hey, okay, interesting. So one for us to note. Okay, next question that was asked by the fans. Who would your dream teammate be? So we love you, Timo. If you're listening, we do love you. But Rafi, we're gonna put it in a hard one for you. Who would your dream teammate? If you could pick any teammate or any driver, driving now or in the past, to be your teammate.
Or Fernando Alonso or Kubica. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And you mentioned them earlier as well, and again, highly respected drivers, super quick. So definitely. Okay, next question. What color dyeing your hair next? Is what one of our fans asked.
No, next time nothing because now is in 3 months I'm coloring my hair, so I will take few months of break, and after yeah I don't know, but for sure I will do something again yeah one day.
Okay, we'll be keeping an eye on you for that one. Okay, I can combine this one into like one. What is your favorite racetrack and least favorite racetrack?
But favorite I always say I have three. Let's say it's Macau, Nordschleife, and Bathurst. The least favorite one it's difficult to say. Uh, Maybe Poricard is nothing special, but it's not that when I go there I don't like. I mean, it's just not fun to drive. Let's say, yeah, let's say Poricard.
Okay, that's an interesting one, and I think as well, like a lot of people well, Rafi, because like it's known for almost being like a testing circuit for tires and stuff, and there's not really like a lot of variety of corners, and then you have that really long straight as well. You could probably sleep on the straight before you
Yeah.
then turn into that right hander. So I get you on that one. This one's a cool one. Uh, Rafi, if you had to live with one car for the rest of your life, what car would you choose?
SLS Black Series.
Ooh, Oh, that's a nice car. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there
I'm
are
glad.
many. I mean, there are many, like also, I don't know, Ferrari 28 GTO, F40. I mean, there are many nice cars. But I think, yeah, the Black Series SLS, yeah.
Yeah, you're wrong with the Black Series
Yeah.
SLS again with the
Yeah.
going doors and naturally aspirated V8. Oof, I love them as well. It's a good shout there. And funnily enough, that is like the SLS is like the father to the car you drive now, being like the AMG GT3.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny you should mention that. Okay. Do you prefer Raffaele or Lello?
No, Lello. Like,
Lello.
almost no
Lello.
one called me Raffaele, yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
just
just
AMG
you.
Denz.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my claim to fame now.
Yeah.
Okay, staying in or partying out?
Staying in.
Oh, okay, you're an introvert. You stay in more.
I'm never at home, so when I'm at home, I like to stay at home rather to go out and party. Then, if I have time during maybe I don't know, about 2 weeks break, I can. I also go party, but normally I don't have so much time, so I prefer to stay home.
Sure. Okay. Next one is like not even like motorsport related at all. $5 million or five loyal friends.
$5 million.
Okay, you didn't pick the loyalty. Okay, I see. And with the $5 million, or would you spend it on? Or what would be the first purchase?
Mm, but nothing special. It's just with 5 million, you can have a good life, and then you cannot spend 5 million in one shot, but you can have a good life and yeah, enjoy your life.
Absolutely. No, that's true. And I like the logic behind that one too. Last question. This is from our boss, Georgina Donna. If we invited you again, or should I say, when we invite you again, Raffaele, like, or would you come back to our podcast again?
Yeah, why not? For sure.
Yay! You heard it here first. Raffaele or Lello, he loves our podcast. So he's coming back. And I'm so happy to hear that as well. So I'll wrap it up now. So, Lello, Raffaele, thank you so
I
much
thank
for your
you.
time today.
I thank you.
Honestly, like, it's such a dream come true for like me to be able to with you because I always watch you on TV. As I mentioned earlier, you're in all of my simulators. So I'm like, this guy, he's the legend. He's just there, And then finally to have like the voice of the guy, and to be able to interact with you in your time, it means so. And I implore all of our listeners, please, make sure you go and basically support Raffaele. Make sure you go and support Akedis. Um, Mercedes GT3 team as well. They're amazing. And they're one of the top teams. They're leading championship right now. So, never a better time to support them. And even, when things don't go 100%, still, they're such a humble team and they work very hard. The mechanics, the engineers, the personnel, the media working there, they're really lovely. So, we're going to leave the Instagram and your website and all your
Thank
social
you.
media links, Lello, so all of our fans can connect and follow and support you. But I'd just like to leave the fans. Just are there any last words you want to say to your adoring fans? And are you looking forward to Zandvoort in a few weeks' time? And are you doing anything even between now and the Zandvoort race for GT World?
Yeah, there is this weekend I have ADAC in Red Bull Ring. Then there is 24-hour Nürburgring. Then Poricard. Then I have 1 week free and then Zandvoort. So there is many races in between. There is not so much break, but I mean, it's what I choose to do. So I'm happy to do. Yeah.
Of course, and we share your passion as well. You're a star, and yeah, I'm so thankful, and yeah, you have a busy schedule too,
Yeah.
and again, like I mentioned, if guy, everyone listening to this podcast, they should really go and check out those other series that we refer to as well, because there's some epic drivers. Not just Raffaele, which is my favorite, of course, but there's so many talented drivers and also some familiar names there too. So you'd be doing injustice to yourself if you don't check it out. So do. But guys, until next time, we will catch. But shout out to our star today, Raffaele Marcielo. I'm
Thank you.
so thankful. And yeah, until next time, guys, peace and love. Be safe, be happy. And Lello, we hope that you go be safe whilst you're out there
Thank
too.
you. Thank you, my friend.
Excellent. Okay, see you guys soon. Bye.